It's an awesome Saturday and we are here to give you nothing but the best in terms of what took place within the course of the week. That's in terms of sports. This is Off the Pitch, a show that comes your way here on Camnetv every Saturday. That's at 9:30 hours, and I'm your host Amos, aka Amore, and I'm never alone on set. I'm joined by my co-host, who is one Augustine. Augustine, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Amos. It's always a pleasure to be here. We turn all the glory and honor to the Most High God. Good morning to our viewers out there. We always appreciate your support and your effort to tune in. It's been an eventful week. We had the under-20 being eliminated at the group stage. Then we had the APSA Cup draws, which took place during the course of the week, on Wednesday to be specific. And then yesterday we had communication from the sponsors, the APSA Cup and the Football Association of Zambia. Venues have been changed for the quarterfinals from Woodland Stadium to Nkoloma Stadium. So the quarterfinals were supposed to be played at Woodland Stadium, but now they have been moved to Nkoloma Stadium.
And it's a huge amount, Augustine, that these guys are playing for, and it's good to see that each and every tournament, that the APSA Cup tournament, there's an increase in terms of the prize money. Last year we saw it being at 650,000. That was for the winners, but this time around it has been increased. That's to 700,000. But we'll get more into this and the elimination of the under-20 in the group stages just after this short commercial.
What do you know about Zambia? Musivapo chani pali Zambia. Mwaishivapo enshi pali Zambia. Let your knowledge about this amazing country earn you up to 5,000 kwacha daily and so many more consolation prizes on the Smart Quiz. For you to be part of this empowering show, all you have to do is subscribe daily for you to answer simple questions about Zambia. Questions in sports, tourism, civic education, and so much more. To participate, all you have to do is dial *265*13990*5#. You can also get the daily questions if you follow and like our Facebook page. Join me, Constance, on the Smart Quiz. Camnetv channel 274 on DSTV, 98 on GoTV, and channel 106 on Topstar.
Like Augustine said, we had an eventful week where we saw the under-20 national team being eliminated. That's at the just ended run for them by Tunisia, where we were beaten by 2-1, and it was, for me, Augustine, it was such an embarrassment result whereby we just equalized within, I would say within seconds, they score.
Yeah, I think basically it's been a poor outing for the Zambia under-20. We started off with Benin, played out to a 1-0 draw. Then we lost to Gambia by 2-0, probably the strongest team in our group. Then we went on to lose to Tunisia by 2-1. So that represents a team which conceded 5 goals in 3 games and only scored 2. I think that's a very, very poor return, if you ask me. What do we get from this tournament, the entire picture? I think first and foremost, junior teams, I think 3 things that I personally look out for is that it's developmental. Are we developing? I think that's the first big question with regards to junior tournaments. The second question is exposure. Were the boys exposed? Yes, they were exposed. I think this is the biggest tournament Africa can offer. And then the last thing is that what do we learn from there? I think these are the 3 components which the Association of Zambia and the technical bench, we need to try and look at. They need to try and we have to have a report from both ends to try and see the way forward, how we can try and tackle this entire issue. I think when we look at the boys, I think a lot of people have criticized the boys. I think but we need to try and be realistic. Zambia is not the biggest country in terms of football. and we do not have the perfect structure. So I think sometimes realistically we are not very realistic. We are very ambitious with putting in one quarter and expect to come out with 1,000. I think that's not being realistic. But all in all, the boys, the disappointing part from what I saw from my end was the performance side. Results, I think results do not really matter at this age group. What we need to see is that boys that are going there and performing, boys that will be brave, but they were not brave, we are not performing. I think those are areas where we need to try and work on. Physically, we lost a lot of battles because of our physicalities. I think we had a group of very small boys who went to the tournament. I think they could, if we saw them engaging in physical battles, they were most times losing those physical battles. And if you look at the Football Association of Zambia and the Camnetv bench, after winning the COSAFA tournament, remember this is the same team everyone was praising when we were winning the COSAFA tournament. But now, all of a sudden, everyone is trying to say bad things about these boys. But when we won the COSAFA tournament, you could see from that end that there were areas where we had to improve on. And one of them was defensively. We were not asked a lot of questions at the COSAFA tournament. We knew that when we go to Africa Cup of Nations, it will be very different. And in central midfield, I felt we were very open in central midfield. We are being passed around very easily. We are not outworking our opponents. We are not on top of our positions in central midfield. That's an area probably we could have, the technical bench and the association probably could have looked at that, because there was Miguel Chaiwa, who was supposed to be part of this team, but because this tournament doesn't fall on the FIFA calendar, Miguel Chaiwa was not released by his football club, young boys. You look at Atalanta Bergamassi, there's one Mana Chiwisa. Mana Chiwisa could have been part of this team, but again, it wasn't on the FIFA calendar. He wasn't part of the team. We had Richard Ngoma, who got injured on his last game for his club before he was about to join the team. He got injured. So we only had one foreign-based player, which was Peter Chikola, who was trying to carry the hopes of this team going forward. Because I think if you looked at Peter Chikola's performances, you could see flashes and brilliance, the magic touch from someone who is coming from abroad. And the technical bench would have loved to strengthen this team. Probably it didn't go their way, and we went out in the group stage. I think we reflect, we look into this performance. I think there are positives that we can try and pick, and a lot of negatives that we'll try and improve on going forward. I think our structures we need to improve in terms of youth football. I think we didn't do much to try and help this team. I was looking at around Africa, around the world, how people are doing it with regards to try and help their youth teams grow. In South Africa, they have got the Super Disc. It's a very competitive...
and a lot of people watch it.
Yes, it's a very competitive youth league. We do not have such in Zambia. So these youth players, if they are playing for Red Arrows, Zesco United, Power Dynamos, most of them are not getting game time. So they will be rusty going into a tournament compared to the boys that they are playing against. We saw the Gambia team, they had players from Bayern Munich, they had players from Cape Town. These are players that are playing competitively at a certain level. Not probably for the main team band, but for the youth team. There's that competitive nature. They are being very active week in, week out. When you look at our boys, it's not everyone who has got that luxury. And we look at South Africa again. They have got the league just behind the PSL, which is their Glow Africa. It's Division 1 football. Their policy in that league is that each team on a match day, you have to start 6 under 23 players in your starting lineup. They have to be 6 under 23 players. What does that do? It gives them enough pool of players to pick from, because these players are playing competitive football. These players are being active. If you can try and adopt such a way of doing things, probably we will see a difference in these age group teams. It should be a mandate for probably every Super League team to have at least 10 players who are under the age of 23 to be registered in their first team. If you go across our country, you struggle to find a team which has got 10 players under the age of 23 on their roster. If you look at the league in the National League, we see players, veteran players playing in the Eden League, in the National League, as compared to young players being given a lot of chance. I think there's a lot of work that we need to put in to try and improve our coaches.
Would you say it should be a mandate, Augustine? Because after that game when we got eliminated, I think one of our journalists did a story with regards to getting the views of the fans in terms of how they took the loss and the early elimination. And a lot of people were saying maybe we didn't do enough in terms of scouting for players because we have a lot of provinces, but we didn't manage to go in all those provinces to scout on the high talent that's there. But again, would you say it should be a mandate to say there's a certain age limit that is supposed to play the division league, instead of veterans now fighting for positions where we know some veterans are just using names? But should it be a mandate?
Yeah, I think it should be, because I think I've heard the cries of people. We need to try and pick players from every provincial.
Hello? Hello, good morning, sir.
Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Wow, we are fine, sir. Your name and where you are calling us from?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
you
morning.
Can go ahead with a contribution.
Yes, I'm calling I'm just
Oh, okay. You can go ahead with your contribution.
yes, I'm see one or two players.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Yellow, yes, you can go ahead.
Yes, we are just for which criteria has been used to check those for anti-question. What's the period? Now we are going to serious one. I think it's how you remember we should have both over the other. We can't get changes. We don't have to go to England. England is at the top of big players over more. This is that. Let's go back to our. We need to get together to pay for other people. To give us the people at the back. One good thing, go around the whole country and you get it out. I think you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming through. I think Augustine is still in support of saying there's, we've got a lot of lower leagues that are there, Augustine. Once we go down there, and it's high time, I think, we should improve on our scouting method, because when you look at, I'll give an example. We've got teams maybe in Charleston. We've got, is it Airport? We've got Kamanga Rangers. We've got Jumbe. We've got PSA. These are teams that at some point, whether we like it or not, they've got talented players. But for them to be noticed, it's very difficult. So now, how do we go about all this? Because just like the point you were raising, to say there is need for age limits.
Yeah, I think the previous callers just highlighted there used to be a time when we used to pick players from schools.
Yes.
And represent Zambia. I think that's another method which can work probably, because if it needs to be the means of education in conjunction with the Football Association of Zambia, working hand in hand to try and improve schools football, so that we can try and probably tap talent even from schools. And a lot of people have been speaking about these players in rural areas, in provincial areas. To be honest, those are just imaginary players. We are not sure if there is talent out there.
Yeah,
I think what we need to do is that we need to try and encourage our clubs to try and go in these rural areas, to try and pick up these players and polish them up, because it's difficult for an association to try and go and get players in rural areas. You get the point. The association job is to try and pick players probably from academies and club and select them for the national team. They cannot go scouting for players. That's a job for the club. Clubs and academies are there to try and scout for this best talent and nurture them, which will be probably business for them in the near future when they sell on these players. They are the ones who have got the sell on value. If you look at Shamil, Shamel, it's not every boy who plays for Shamel who is from Lusaka. No. It's not every boy who plays for Atletico Lusaka who is from Lusaka. No. A good example is the player who scored for us against Tunisia, Kings Mutendwa. He's from the Central Province. Kings is not from Lusaka. Atletico Lusaka went and tapped Kings Mutendwa and brought him to Atletico Lusaka, and people might just be thinking, oh, he's coming from Lusaka. No, he's from Central Province. So they try and pick the best talent across the country. If a lot of teams or academies can try and come up with these policies to try and pick the best young talent across the country, bring them to probably I think the Football Association, what they need to try and do is facilitate, and that facilitation is try and have a very competitive youth league. A very, very competitive youth league where everyone can go and see the best talent, and everyone would say, but why didn't you pick player ABCD? But at this particular time, people are just saying rural areas, but they do not have money.
Let's just pick this call, Augustine. Hello? Hello. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Francis from Mazabuga.
Mr. Francis, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. How is Mazabuga this morning?
It's okay to sunny today.
Thank you.
You can go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, look, there is no excuse at all for the embarrassing performance by our under 20. I watched the first and second game and I stopped watching. They were making so many errors in midfield and defense. And I wonder why the opponent did not even score 10 goals. Now, what will be amazing is that all those players came from academies only in Lusaka. Even the selection of the coach was questionable. Our opponents are coaches who have played professional football abroad. For me, these fans are dreaming. How did we develop school football? Actually, where are we now? We will have a better selection. Even took players from secondary schools.
Yeah.
For me, this is an indication once more that our fans failed. How do you explain the poor performance in the men's football since they took over? I thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Francis.
Wow.
I think you can hear from just the tone of his voice, he's a very disappointed and grieved supporter.
Yeah,
and maybe Augustine, just connecting the two here, looking at how, at times it's very shocking when we look at, there's a lot of development that is needed within the lower leagues. And when we look at the winner's prize amount that these teams are playing for in the ABSA, it's an easy deal where maybe certain tournaments like this should be even brought to these lower division.
Yeah.
Where, because imagine just a team playing for a 25,000. That's the winner's prize. The runners up go with a 10,000 or a 15,000. You see talent, Augustine, but it's because we've seen a lot of Christmas tournaments that are being played, Augustine. We see these same players that are playing in the Super League playing those tournaments. Maybe I'll give an example of the just ended tournament that was being sponsored by Mr. Mposha. That's in Monali constituency. If you saw it, the final it was played in Ngoloma Stadium. You saw the caliber of players that came there. And if you were to ask, how many Premier League coaches were there just to see if they can scout one or two players?
I think that's the biggest problem with regards our football. I think the clubs are not putting enough to try and see the football grow. I think it takes clubs to try and help the association to try and improve performances of our national team. How many clubs in Zambia have got scouts? That's the biggest question. I doubt if we even have clubs who've got scouts. These clubs, every time they're looking for a player, they just call agents. So can you find me a number 8 or number 2? It ends there. And probably you see even the foreign players that are coming into the land, they are not scouted. They're just coming in, and then you just realize this guy, it's not good as we thought he was. I think there's a good example with Sessions Zanako. They signed a guy named Ihanacho.
The one who is still injured.
He hasn't ticked a ball up to now. Who scouted Ihanacho? I think you can try and ask questions with regards to our football. We are not putting a lot of effort. If you look at the way teams are being run in South Africa, England, and elsewhere, this is a full-time job, and people are putting in a lot of effort. What can the association do to try and help our football get back to those good old days? People have talked about schools football. It's an area where we can try and have this talent from there. I think one thing you get from schools is that there won't be a lot of age cheating, because basically you know that these are genuine boys with genuine age. We go to the schools to work with the Ministry of Education.
Well, for me, it's still Augustine. The question still is, what happened to the tournaments that we used to have in schools? Because I remember back then we used to have tournaments for basics and tournaments for secondary schools, where you would see yellow.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes. You see, our players here were the problem. Our players don't know how to play. The problem is with the coach and the administrators. The administrators interpret and the situation at all. Ama administrators here to go somewhere. Watu msala ala kuitlan ama koji. Then ama koji ya inaleta kwa sala ala kuitlan. Amen. So pia ndio iko hiyo. Wewe kwa mambo ya kusala masala kwa sababu masala mitlan. Then you go to Southern Province, you go to November, you go to the Kalwari.
No, thank you very much.
So I think there are a lot of emotions. I think you can see. I think it affects everyone when the national team is not performing well, especially the men's national team who are doing very, very poor at the moment. The women's team are flying; they are doing very, very well, and a lot of people will not talk about how the women's team is selected, because there's success, and a lot of the women's team is comprised of soccer teams, and teams. People won't say that because the women's team is doing very well, but a good number of the women's team they're coming from Lusaka. So I think the issue here is
the issue of results.
How do we improve our structure, our football structure? I think the Football Association of Zambia, like I said, they need to try and engage the schools to try and improve. We had Coca-Cola Cup, which was being played at the schools level. Can you try and find sponsorship to try and help schools football? Then the youth league. I think I keep on talking about the youth league. If we do not improve our youth league, we'll keep struggling like this. I think we can try and improve our youth league, try and have an incentive towards the end. Probably there are big tournaments almost like the Gauteng in South Africa, which are teams participate, even teams from the Netherlands, from the UK, they come and participate in the Gauteng. There's Gothia Cup in Sweden. There's Dana Cup in Denmark. The Association of Zambia cannot fail to try and engage these sponsors of this tournament. Say,
Hello?
Yellow.
Hello?
Yellow, good morning.
Hello?
Yellow, good morning.
Hello?
Yellow, good morning, you are through.
Hello?
Yellow.
Hello?
Yellow, we are able to hear you.
The next
Come again?
I'm calling from Mama.
Oh, okay. Your name again?
Yeah, my contribution we are very much disappointed on the second one. My name is Amara.
Oh, okay.
We are second, but the way something the other things to come, we are very much disappointed. When the reason why when the come is we don't have the consent how you take the dollars who perform. You must be taking the dollars from one area, one city, and they perform well one day, they are the performance, so that's the that thing was to go around the world, the past people. They look to go around and see how others perform all the things that they done here. You find very, very strong in the state of prayer, not the way my God is the prayer of my own soul. Zambia is for everyone, not for one reason, not for the Father. So we all have the people for not to go around the mountain and come not people who tell me, the farmer is moving Zambia up. I submit.
Thank you very much. a lot.
You can see that failure is an orphan and success has many fathers. And you look at 2020. I'll go back to 2017 when we won the Africa Cup of Nations here in Lusaka. The team comprised of Copperbelt and Lusaka. The players that were on that field of play, it was only Copperbelt and Lusaka. Because we were successful, a lot of people are not bringing out these points. But all in all, I think these are very, very good points, good ideas. The association, I hope they will try and pick up and try and improve. I was saying, if we can have a youth league whereby the two top teams, probably the association will try and find them tournaments that will go and participate, just to try and motivate them. Probably Dana Cup in Denmark, a Gothia Cup in Sweden. With such Paramba was going to Gothia Cup, and a lot of players came through that tournament,
ranks, yeah.
and they were exposed at that level. You look at our players who went to the Africa Cup of Nations. Probably there was someone who was saying the wrong things to these boys. There were times where I saw a lot of individualism. There was no teamwork, because probably someone said to these boys, "This is a
your
good
time
stage for you to shine and sell yourself," and that backfired on us. But you could see that we have got young boys. They will learn. Believe you me, come 3-4 years from now, one of these boys will be playing for the top teams around the world. I mark my words, Amos. These boys are not as bad as we think they are. Yes, the performance wasn't very, very good. They didn't turn up, but they are not the worst players. Kosafa, they went and it was a clean sweep in Kosafa. So we dominated our region. But you do realize that sometimes you might think you are good, but when now you face the big lions, you realize you're just a small lion in a very, very big jungle. And that's what happened with us. We were found out. Kosafa, we only conceded 1 goal. And we beat everyone who we played. But now we went to the big stage and we were found out.
You know, a lot of concern in terms of how the team selections is being done, Augustine. Now let's look at the also team that was selected under 23 over this upcoming game that we have. And for it's a provisional squad though. And in the goalkeeping department we have Francis Mwansa from Trident, Jairo Stembo from FC Muza, Mukuka Chilufya, Aquila Stars, Patrick Choma, Prison Leopards, and
just a bit on those.
Yes,
4 goalkeepers. 1 Trident, Southern. Is he in Sorwezi?
Jairo Stembo, FC Muza,
and we have got 1 Southern Province, FC Muza. We have
Aquila Stars.
Aguila is also Central.
And Prison Leopards, Patrick Choma.
Central Province. So there's no one from Lusaka, eh?
Yeah. And then let's go to the defenders department. We've got John Chishimba, Zesco United, Emmanuel Walia Chembe, Andrew Piri, Matthews Chavala on Changa Rangers. We've got Nexala Mvula, Martin Zulu, both Chambishi, Ronald Chandachileshe, FC Muza, William Kamwanga, Lumana Radiance, Christopher Katongo, Kansanshi Dynamos, Shapi Chikondi, Njovu, Green Eagles, Brian Musema, Jumulo.
Again.
No Lusaka.
I think for the viewers now, we need to try and
reflect on this selection.
Facts now, when we come up, when this team goes and fails, we need to have facts. There are players from Kansanshi and Lumana Radiant.
Yeah.
That's that part of the country. Then we've got players from Muza, Southern Province. We've got Copperbelt dominated. This is dominated by Copperbelt in that defense.
Yeah, from the goalkeepers department and just the defenders, Copperbelt.
So we don't have anyone from Lusaka up to the midfield. You can go ahead.
The midfielders, we've got Prince Mumba, Kawe Warriors, Martin Zulu, Chambishi, Patrick Gondwe Ngana, Joshua Mtale, Power Dynamos, Gordon Mashata, John Kosam, both Green Buffaloes, Peter Piri, Morning Stars, Wilson Chisala, Dalitso Piri, both Zanako, Muya, FC Muza. So on the midfield department, that's where we've got players from.
We've got 5 from Lusaka, and the rest are from the Copperbelt and the Southern Province. We need to find this balance when we are coming up with these facts.
And in the strikers department, Augustine, we've got Andrew Piri, that's FC Muza, Jimmy Mukeya, Napsa Stars, Enoch Mbewe Jr., Zesco United, Ricky Banda, Red Arrows, Jonathan Munalula, Forest Rangers, Kelvin Muranga, Chiombo United. I think, if you've noticed, Augustine, I think they are just about 8.
8 players
over the 30 provision squad.
30 players that have been picked. I think we need to try and stress this to the viewers. over the 30 players that have been picked.
And that's the and then emphasize under 23.
Under 23. 8 are from Lusaka, and these 8 that are from Lusaka, they're just representing Lusaka clubs. Ricky Banda is not from Lusaka, he's from the Copper Belt. So I think all in all now, when we come to this squad, Nchanga Rangers have got 3 players in there. Very, very strong captain in Chavala in the centre back. He's a very, very good team player. He's going to probably partner Shapich Kondinjovu in that heart of the defense. John Chishimba is one player who I rate very, very highly. He's a boy who is going to one day take up that Chipolopolo boys left sided of defense and take us forward. We are playing against an Egyptian side who are very, very tricky. We just saw under 20 being found out when they played the North Africans in Tunisia. So we need to be very, very careful as we play these Egyptians. Someone in 2009, Zambia played Egypt in under 20 Africa Cup qualifier. We drew 3-3 in Cairo, and we lost 1-0 at Nchanga Stadium at the very death of the game. A draw was seen as qualified by the virtue of the away goals we had scored. We lost it at the very, very death. They scored at the 90th minute, and it was curtains for Mother Zambia. So now, what we should also Mutapa do with this team, I think I saw them in their previous round. Their performance at home, I think, left much to be desired. They need to try and up their game. John Kosam in central midfield, he's a boy who I believe will try and grab this opportunity and make things happen in that central midfield. He has got talented players like Patrick Gondwe of Ghana and Joshua Budomutale, very, very clever midfielder. He picks up those little pockets and make things happen from there. We've got one of the most happening striker in the league in Andrew Piri, FC Musa, very, very lethal in front of goal. He scored the goal which saw us qualified to this stage. I think all in all, we have got a very, very good assembled side. If someone watches the Zambian Super League, we will agree that this is probably the closest we could have come to the very best. I think there
will be inclusions that case.
Yeah, there are little question marks with Ricky Banda. He hasn't hit the ground running this season. Likewise, Jimmy Mkeya, it's not happening for him and Napsasas, but most of these boys are the boys that are doing very, very well for their respective club in the MTN Super League. And probably abroad, we may need to look at players like the Katongo, a lot of Jadeo Katongo of Man City. A lot of things have been said about this boy. Can the association move in quickly and try and bring him to represent Mother Zambia? I think that will be something which will be very, very interesting to see how it develops from now up until this end of the qualifiers.
So that's the selection that was done for the under 23 over the upcoming game against Egypt, and we've gone through the provisional squad. That's the 30-man provisional squad, and Augustine has analyzed it to say it's not comprised of Lusaka alone. I think it's a balanced thing. So let's hopefully and hope that they'll get results that are needed. And we saw the APSA draws that took place within the course of the week, and maybe let me just go through Augustine on the prize money, which we earlier spoke of, but we didn't touch more on it. We've got the winners who walk away with 700,000, and the runners-up will walk with 350,000. The Golden Boot Award will walk away with 25,000. Golden Glove Award will also walk away with 25,000. Player of the tournament, 25,000, and the player of the match for each game will receive 15,000. There are also been an increase in terms of the traveling amount, Augustine, which has been increased for teams that are traveling. That's within. That's at 30,000 for teams traveling from out of town, while the teams within town will be getting 20,000, which is a good amount of money. And the draws are as follows, Augustine. We've got the quarterfinals will be played. That's on March 11th and the 12th. And we've got Green Buffaloes versus Forest Rangers, Power Dynamos versus Mofulira Wanderers. And on the 12th, we've got Green Eagles versus Trident, Red Arrows versus FC Moza, and we'll have the semi-final that will be played on April 8th and 9th, and then the final is on May the 13th. Augustine, any surprising draw here? We joked around when we said Arrows has gotten a stronger opponent.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting tournament. The APSA Cup, it has always produced shocks in the past. We saw one time when Chambishi, a lower league team, went all the way up to the final, but eventually we lost to Power Dynamos. Last season we saw a team from the lower league, Eden University to be specific in APSA Stars, going all the way and winning the APSA Cup at the home of the champions, Red Arrows and Coloma Stadium. So it produces a shockers. Forest Rangers, the last time around, they were eliminated by Konkola Blades. So it's a tournament which gives you everything. If you look at Power Dynamos, they look like strong favorites because they are in control of the league and they're playing some good football. Defensively, they look very, very solid, and offensively, they're getting goals. With the coming in of Andy Boyedi, they fancy their chances of winning the double this season. Red Arrows will try and throw their name in the hat. They went all the way last season, lost to a Chinese Zulu Brilliant Strike in the final. Green Eagles, this is a team that have come close to winning the league title. They've come close to winning the APSA Cup. They were in the semi-finals last season, eliminated by Red Arrows. Can they try and put their hands on silverware to try and excite the people in the Southern Province? FC Musa, a surprise package this season, and in this tournament, they'll try and play with a lot of freedom because they have got nothing to lose. The pressure is not on FC Musa, and it's a very, very big danger for Red Arrows coming up against an exciting young FC Musa side. Trident, they've invested heavily. They are one of the biggest investors across both leagues, and it's paying for them. They have got a lot of experience in their team. Justin Zulu, Lingoma, they've got Arnold Stembo. These are players that have played at the big league. They've represented big clubs, and they know what to do. Mighty Mfulia Wanderers, Cub Legendaries, Arena Mirambo, Mighty Winnie Chungulo, Kakishena Masu. They've got 100 names, Mighty Mfulia Wanderers, and they'll fancy their chances against Power Dynamos, old nemesis. And it's good to see Mighty Mfulia Wanderers. They're one of those teams that are a crowd puller in the Zambian Super League, in the Zambian football setup. Then we've got teams like Green Buffaloes. It's been long since they won the silverware. They will love to put their hands on this one. Forest Rangers, likewise, they've been in and around conversation of winning something, but they haven't delivered. The last time around was probably 2006 when they beat Red Arrows in the Coca-Cola Cup final at the Arthur Davis Stadium. They would love to win something, Forest Rangers. It's been long for them. I think what we need to do going forward, like we said in the previous edition of the APSA Cup, our cry is that APSA Cup, the sponsors, they have a lot of participation in this tournament. We cannot only have 8 teams. We have got about 6-7 leagues in the football association, and only 8 teams are participating. I think that's not fair enough. They need to try and have this tournament start from the lower leagues. So it can be another opportunity of scouting young players. It can be another opportunity of improving our national team, improving clubs in continental football. So I think the APSA, the organizers, they're doing a very, very good job to be the only cup competition that we have in the land. But can they try and involve everyone who is under the Football Association of Zambia umbrella?
And let's just look at this, how these are, maybe it's a different scenario, but anyway, hopefully this
just think of it. Zesco United against China Bombers in China.
Imagine and imagine how it can be for China Bombers in terms of maybe take-ins, because they would say, oh, okay, we'll maybe switch this game to Coloma Stadium,
exactly,
where people have to pay for, who have get taking. So I think it's the other way of maybe, just boosting the morale of these clubs. And like a club is just playing.
Team probably in Mamba. Our previous scorer was from Mamba. It's drawn against Ghana. I think it can be very, very interesting.
It can be good for
everyone participating. We have a lot of players onshore, and scouts can try and pick the finalists. I think even these young boys can look at this window and see a very, very big opportunity to try and impress and progress in their careers.
Hopefully this can get to the ears of APSA, because like Augustine has said, we've got about six active leagues that's under FAS, and we just pick 8 teams, which is somehow very, very, very low. So like it can just start from these lower teams coming up, and then these teams can just join. For me, I think, Augustine, we can just have these same 8 teams being joined by teams that have already been competing down there.
I think it happens with the
maybe FA let Cup. It start in the round of 16.
In England, it starts with the FA Cup. It starts with these lower teams. They will start eliminating each other up until a stage where these Premier League teams will join in.
Yeah.
I think that would be very, very easy, so that we have, like we used to have this when we had the Mosi Cup. A Mosi Cup, almost every team used to participate, and we had a lot of talent on show, and players were being picked on merit. Like the cry of a lot of Zambian people that players are not being picked on merit. If we can have such tournaments, expand them so that everyone participates, so that we look at the finest talent on the biggest stage.
I know, Augustine, it's a bit early to start giving predictions, but your prediction final for this ABSA Cup?
Wow, I think probably my two favorites in this tournament are Red Arrows, who went all the way last season. Their form has improved recently, and Power Dynamos. And these two teams cannot meet up until the final. Probably, if these teams are on their very best, I see a Red Arrows Power Dynamos final at the National Hero Stadium. But Green Eagles will have a say, and Forest Rangers will also have a say.
That's Augustine's prediction. Don't say, no, Augustine. That's Augustine. And just keep this to mind, because we will be here again to give that verdict if it will go through. But now, Augustine, let's switch our attention to the MTN Super League games that are being played today. And we've got an early kickoff. That's Chambishi hosting Nkwazi. And at 15 hours, we've got Green Buffaloes versus Lumwana Radiants, and Kawe Warriors versus Napsa Stars, Kansanshi Dynamos versus Zesco United, Nchanga Rangers versus Red Arrows, Nkana versus Prison Leopards, and Zanaco versus Green Eagles. And we saw I think Coach Perry Mtapa saying this is not time to drop points.
Yeah, very, very tight. I think the early kickoff sees two teams that are in.
Hello. Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You are through to Off the Pitch. Your name and where you are calling us from?
From Kabir.
Oh, okay. Charles.
Just to show, I think here in the Red Arrows listening up. I'm listening to the day. We know the guys are not on their side. They always try to go at this time around they can get in trouble. They haven't won the game in the last 11 seasons there. But it's a very big fixture for Red Arrows. But then we are producing a Red Arrows side that we saw last week, and they're picking up results. They're grinding them out. At times they are winning with this, but then what matters is getting the result, which they are doing true. They are not giving up the title just yet.
And Charles, before we let you go, Charles, we've seen some results that have Nkwazi has produced of late, and they are not the results that maybe you would want. But how do you see the game being played today against Chambishi?
The results they're talking about, I'll play this year. This thing we had in the Super League against Zanaco is in 50. So that is the result of focus.
Okay.
Against Green Buffaloes, yes, we lost our 3-2 at home, which is not always an easy game coming up against Green Buffaloes, because Green Buffaloes are always, I don't know how it's played, because the Green Buffaloes away, they beat us. Even if it's a heavy player, when Nkwazi is away, we beat Green Buffaloes. So without having been going Nkwazi's way for some time, I think what I do, like he has played to shoot. We have the right players, we have the players, but I think most of them are back in the team. Very few things that is at the moment. Everyone is in apart from Nelson, we have put the hamstring against Houston. But then that aside, going into this game, another thing is that Kandeshi are no pushovers. They know how to win. If they want to stay up, in as much as because they want to stay up, they also want to stay up. Last time, usually whoever scores gets the result. So it is still one, but because it is win 3-1.
Very impressive, Charles. I think last week you lost the battle of the landlords and the tenants, but that's a story for another day. But looking at the results that you got at Sunset Stadium, how disappointing was it that you lost the game to GBFC at home?
Very disappointing. But then Rio, I'm a statistician. I looked at the stats, and then coming up against Green Buffalo, very good Green Buffalo that don't keep the last time we scored a goal against celebrating with 52 that was on paper, going by that, but the record is broken. Everyone believes was wait that day. Just a few mistakes by some individuals and then still to pick up in the second half. But the second half was better played than the first half.
No, we appreciate your coming through, Charles, and happy Police Day to you and to the whole entire police guys, and how you've been saving us. And we hope that Ngwazi can win so that it can be the best gift to you guys.
Yeah, happy Police Day to Charles and the madam.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Welcome. So that was the Nkwazi media officer.
Yeah, Charles.
Charles, I think he does a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
He does a lot of write-ups to try and do with statistics of this league. I think a lot of people, I would advise them to try and follow Charles. He does a very, very good rundown of statistics and head-to-head with regards Super League. And it was disappointing. They went down to GBFC at home. A Golden Mashata brace. I think the boy is really on fire. But you can see what also Mtapa is trying to do with this squad. He has been unlucky with injuries, key players in and out of the team. I think if he can get everyone fit, probably they can try and stage a very, very good run and survive relegation.
And I think we've gone through this game, Augustine, and maybe another exciting game. It's the Ghana versus Prison Leopards game. We've seen Ghana picking up some good results of late, and I don't know why our very own is still in hiding, but they've been doing fine, I think.
I think he has gone to Copperbelt to hand over the man of the match.
Yellow, good morning.
Good morning.
You are through to Off the Pitch, your name and where you are calling us from.
I'm calling from within the South.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just want to talk about Ghana versus Prison Leopards today.
Oh, okay. You can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think this one, because I'm not one. I think this one is going to be easy for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we win the game. And then I want to talk about quality and something easy for them. We know how Sunday to get to their home. It's going to be easy for quality. And then after a tough game this one. And Buffalo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming through.
I think that's the kind of fun. They're coming up against Prison Leopards. He's talked about the game. It will be very, very tough. Yeah, it's a very, very tough encounter. Prison Leopards sometimes unpredictable. He's talked about Nkwazi Chambeshi being another tough encounter. Game, yeah. I think Nkwazi will fancy their chances against Chambeshi. The last time around in that relegation zone, they went to Ghana Stadium and played an early kickoff against Indeni, and that was the game which turned around their fortunes, and they saw them survive relegation. Probably it might be the same this time around. Ghana against Prison Leopards. Prison Leopards started the season on fire. They had Lubinda Mundia, who was banging in goals. Yeah. He looked like he was going to be a contender for the Golden Boot Awards, but he slowed down in recent weeks. They've got Zephania Piri, who can play in central midfield, right back and right wing. He gives them different options and dimensions. Coming up against the Ghana side, who have looked very, very good in recent weeks. And based on Chambeshi, they've got David Kavala, who's been getting them the goals. What to get from Ghana Football Club? Ghana have not been a team which is very, very solid defensively, a team that will keep clean sheets and win football matches from there. Ghana have always been an attacking team, so they always depend on their goals, their goal scorers. And this time around, this season, the first half of the season, they struggled because they never had a lot of goals in them. But now the coming in of David, you've seen an improvement because there is someone who they can rely on to get them the goals and kill off matches. Ghana have always, they need to outscore opponents for them to win football matches. Ghana are not Ezesco United who win narrowly 1-0 and then sit on the lead. They are not Zanaco who win 1-0, sit on the lead, who have got defensive solidity. Ghana are a team that are playing expansive attacking football, so they always leave themselves open, and if they do not have someone getting them the goals, it's a problem because they are always leaking in goals. So now they've got David, who is getting them over the line and seeing them victory. And this afternoon against the Prison Leopards, I feel Ghana will carry the day and probably get into the top half
Augustine, we've got Nchanga Rangers, who is hosting Red Arrows, and it's a chance for Red Arrows to go into the top 4. If they manage to beat Nchanga Rangers, they'll go to 42 points, which will be a point away from Forest Rangers and about 6 points, away to Power Dynamos.
Yeah, I think Charles brought an interesting statistics. 11 years, Red Arrows have gone to Nchanga Stadium and they haven't picked up 3 points. This season, Nchanga Rangers are unbeaten and at Nchanga Stadium, the former Gabitas. I think it's a daunting place to go to. It's not going to be easy for the defending champions. The return leg at Hero Stadium, the first leg at Hero Stadium, Red Arrows won the game by 3-0. Conrad Duchanga was flying. James Chamanga got the goals, and Saide scored from the penalty spot to try and reduce the deficit for Nchanga. Nchanga have moved away from the team that they were in the first half of the season. Nchanga were attacking teams. They are very, very open. They are playing some beautiful flowing football. But under Agwe Chiangi, they are more pragmatic. They drop off a little bit. They are very, very solid to break down. They rely on counter-attacks and Pedro Miguel to hold that play for them, which will be very, very tricky for Red Arrows going away from home. Nchanga will depend on set pieces. They've brought in Ibengi, who is very, very good when it comes to set pieces. They've got Logic Chingandu in that squad, who is very, very good again when with regard to set pieces. Nchanga will let Red Arrows have the ball and try and hit them on the break. Red Arrows have to be very, very wary against the Nchanga opposition. But the most undoing part about this Nchanga team under Agwe Chiangi is that they're not picking up a lot of victories. They are more of a side that are getting a lot of draws, and I see this afternoon encounter at Nchanga Stadium to be a goalless draw or a 1-1 draw.
Another exciting fixture, Augustine, that we have is tomorrow, Sunday, and this is Forest Rangers hosting FC Muza, and these teams are just separated by a point. And we've seen FC Muza surprising a lot of teams this season.
Cracker of a match. I think the last time Muza faced Forest Rangers, I think they ended Forest Rangers and unbeaten run at that time. And Muza traveling to the Copper Belt. They've picked vital points in the Copper Belt at the Arthur Davis Stadium, at Levi Mwanawasa. They've gone to Nchanga Stadium and picked up a late draw. I think they'll be bubbling with confidence. They went to Chambishi, got a 2-0 victory. They're coming up against a Forest Rangers side who have just fresh from being beaten 3-1 by Ngana, which was one of those games which we felt probably Forest Rangers are not very much equipped to want to win this league title. Luambo Moyela level on the top scorers chart with Power Dynamos, Andy Boeri. They are fighting for that golden boot. They've got Clifford Mulenga back in the team. It's going to be an interesting encounter, but I feel Forest will try and find a way to get back to winning ways this tomorrow as they play FC Muza. Probably a narrow win for Forest Rangers.
Just a quick run through, Augustine, due to time. We've got FAS National Division 1 week 26 fixtures, and today, Saturday, the 4th of March, we've got Kafue Celtic versus Zesco Malaiti. That's at 13 hours, and it's at the Independence Stadium, and it will be also live on TV. And at 15, we've got Young Green Buffaloes versus Indeni. And we've got City of Lusaka versus Atletico Lusaka, Mutondo Stars versus Aquila Stars. And tomorrow, Sunday the 5th, we've got Bats versus Kafue Eagles, Jumulo versus Kito United, and Livingston Pirates versus Mpolongo Heba, and Lusaka Dynamos versus Kongola Blades, Trident versus Mofulila Wanderers. Okay, so I think some exciting fixture here. Lusaka Dynamos versus Kongola Blades tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Lusaka Dynamos, they look like a team that's going to be relegated for the second time. I think they do not have what it takes to stay in the league. I watched them a couple of weeks ago. They played Mutondo at Edwin Imboela. They lost by 1-0. They had Godfrey Bing at that time, but he's since moved on to Kawa. They do not have a lot of goals in them. They've got young Moses Ondashi, previously of Red Arrows youth team. He's there at Lusaka Dynamos, but it's a very, very big task for them to stay up. My team, Fulia Wanderers, against Trident. I think this game will try and show us the direction of the title. If Trident beat Mighty Fulia Wanderers, they will be running away with the league title, and will leave Fulia Wanderers looking behind them to try and see who is chasing them very, very closely. Another interesting encounter is the highly rated Atletico Lusaka playing against City of Lusaka. Interesting game. City of Lusaka, they are always blowing hot and cold. They've got Patrick Ngoma in their ranks, Can they try and get over this Atletico Lusaka side who had sent 5 players to the under-20? There without them, they'll be depending on Tapiwa, centre back, very, very good centre back. I must say they've got Abel in central midfield and Desmond Nyirenda to try and get them the goals without Kings Mutendwa in the team. Interesting stuff in the lower league. And in Luansha, they've got there's Mutondo versus Aguida. Makundika Sakala's charges in France.
Yellow.
Hello.
Yellow, good morning.
Hello.
Yellow, good morning. You're through.
Good morning, thank you. Otherwise, sir.
Well, okay. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of calling you from Camnetv. I don't know if I can also contribute about I asked about the national team.
Yes.
The under 20.
Yes, yes.
Recently knocked out of the under 20 Africa formation.
Yes. You can go ahead.
Thank you. I thought what you people that you may know about the criteria that they use, especially when they are selecting the national team squad. Because if you look at the players that we had, most of them they were from Atletico. And if you look at the performance of Atletico, they are not performing well. Which is very bad because they cannot pick the player from the team which is not performing well to present the country. And you have got a lot of players, quality players from the rural areas of Zambia where they can pick quality players and present us very well. The squad in which they were under par. They did not perform according to fans' expectations. So I don't know the criteria that they use these people when they are selecting the national team squad. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. I think that was our last call, Augustine, for the day due to time.
Yeah, I think again he speak about the selection. I think the biggest problem with our under 20 selection is that the coach is not permanently under 20 coach. He's engaged with a football club. Chisimbewe is with Red Arrows. We've got his assistants who are engaged with Zesco United and Nkana Football Club respectively. So it's very, very difficult for these teams to be, these coaches to be looking at young players week in, week out, because there are not a lot of young players in the Super League. They are with their Super League clubs trying to win football matches. What we need to do going forward is that have permanent under 20, under 17, under 23 coaches who are not engaged with any football club, who are just dependent on that under 23 job, so that they can go around and pick the best talent. Because I believe Chisimbe will not have the time to try and go into rural areas and pick these young players, because in this engagement
he's got something.
So the Football Association of Zambia, the next time when they are appointing coaches for youth teams, appoint someone who is full time.
Your final remarks, Augustine, as we come to the end of the show.
I think a big thanks to the entire production team for making this possible, and a big thanks to all our viewers out there. We always appreciate your effort and your support and your contribution. I think your contributions are very, very valid and on point. I think probably the authorities will hear your cry and try and do something differently, and would like to urge each and every one of you to trek to the nearest stadium to watch Bola Pazedi, whether it's developmental, whether it's the Super League and the National League, so that the next time around when these teams are being picked, the national teams, you will bring us names of players who you feel are supposed to be in these teams. But all in all, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and your support.
And this is where we come to the end of the show, and people have complained a lot, Augustine, in terms of how the selection is being done. But let's see on the selection that Avram Grant is going to do, because when we look at it, we've got a lot of strikers that are on fire, and people will still expect certain names to be there, but we'll see how the selection will be done. Anyway, from me, Amos Eke Amore and the whole entire production team, Mrs. Mshota upstairs and Elijah Chifita, and not forgetting Pastors Moses and Victoria Chilwa for giving us this platform to give you nothing but the best in terms of sports. I've been your host, Amos, aka Amore. It's bye-bye. See you next week, and happy Police Day to the women and men in uniform.